It's tactical and practical. We got one of the best CMOs in the ecom game, MacCoy Merkley. Welcome back. Second time on?
Third, dude. I'm competing, I
Third.
think, with Connor for the most guest appearances on Tactical and Practical.
Dude, the first two were good too. So third one has, got a lot of expectations to fill, but I think we can do it, man. How are you?
Let's try, man. I'm doing good. Start of the year is it's starting really strong for us. Much better than we were last year. Last year we had some bumpy roads in the beginning of the year, but right now we're looking real strong. Ready to grow and grow and grow and grow and get back to that mode for us. So I'm happy.
Yeah.
We're ready to go.
Hell yeah, awesome. Well, we're going to get into 2025 growth tactics in a minute. But first, this podcast came up because I sent you a text that I think a lot of people struggle with what I'm struggling with right now. And shot you a text that said, I'm struggling balancing manager duties versus individual contributor duties. I still run our ad account, write all our copy, execute a ton of CRO stuff. Any tips? And then creator Nate hopped in and said, better yet, do you want to do a podcast about it? Because if we're going to struggle in life, we might as well create content of it,
Yeah, let's do it publicly. Maybe we can help somebody. Just one person. That'd be great.
Yeah. But no, I think it's I think it's an important topic in ecom because so many of us start off as one-man teams or 1.5-man teams or one-man team plus a couple contractors, and we've been lucky enough to grow our brands pretty quickly, and then we all of a sudden have a budget where we have a 3, 4, 5, 27-person team. And during that time, there's a transition where you still have work to do beyond managing, and that can be a lot. So just kind of wanted to hear what your journey has been like. I think you've grown the team from yourself to 27 in 4 years, 5 years, which is nuts. Would love to kind of hear how that went and what you wish you knew maybe when you were in my shoes.
Dude, that would be a very, very long podcast. The things I wish I knew. I'm sure it's ongoing, to be honest. That's one of the things we'll talk about is all the stuff you don't even know you don't know, which is the most dangerous. I I won't go super deep into my history, but kind of like my career highlights is I've been on the team since Portland Leather Goods was doing less than $1 million on their .com. They were a little bigger on the Etsy company side. It was about $3.5 million, but we've grown well over into the 9-figure scale now. So from 1 to 100 million. And so that journey took me from being on a extremely small team, and by extremely small, I mean basically me running all of the e-commerce marketing side of things, to now my position as CMO. I have about 26, 27 or so people there, depending on how you count them up on any given day on the creative and marketing teams. And then I'm actually now even in charge of spinning up our retail division. That needs alignment and focus and attention. We have some really great people over there, but that's one of the subjects of how we get this all done. Is just great people. But in any case, I've seen that journey. I've been through what a lot I think of people have gone through, growing from a really small team, going up into something much larger, and figuring out how to manage that, how to manage all of the things that you need to get done as an IC, which is where most of us start, into what the executive mode, whether or not that means you're a CMO or a VP, whatever it is. I'm talking about the executive state of management, how we get things done. So I'm excited to dig into this. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the early stages of first couple hires. Maybe it's your first full-time employee where you definitely still have 30 hours of work a week to do, but now you also have this resource that you are responsible for.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've been managing people for long enough to know managing people is work that takes time and dedication and communication. So let's kind of start early days, couple employees, couple freelancers, and still a lot of IC work to do. What were some of your big kind of unlocks there to make sure the team was cruising and you were getting your shit done too?
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe this is be familiar to somebody who's again, in a solo team. But yeah, to go back, in the beginning, I was doing it all. We were doing a lot less, and I'll put it that way. It's you can't do it all. And so when you're in that mode, you're probably doing a lot less than you will eventually. So when I say I was doing it all, that means less. I was running our ads. I was our e-commerce merchandiser. I was involved in all sorts of cost optimization and just CRO optimization, just basically coming in every single day and trying to stack wins, making the website better and better and better. And just as like a general framework, when it comes to this idea of like how we begin to add members to our team, I think that a really helpful perspective or a really helpful framework to look at this through the lens of is like we want to be investors, strategic investors of labor, of people, putting butts in chairs and giving them a list of tasks to get done. And so again, the hard part and where it feels like most awkward is when you're just kind of struggling to figure it out. It's really hard to make that first hire and put somebody in a chair because like what do you give them? Like, what are you? Like, you're a generalist. You're running around doing a million different things. Um, and you're going to have to like grow into this new skill set. This is going to be true. It's the same framework and cycle that you're going to go all the way up, which is like, okay, we're a strategic investor of labor, of people. We need to figure out what those people do. And so you need to start to survey your own activities. You need to start to look at what you're good at, what you're bad at, what's happening, what's not happening that needs to happen, and start to inventory these things out. And it takes time. Like you're not going to figure this out in an afternoon because you're busting your ass. You got a lot of stuff to do. But over time, you start to take inventory of like what's going on in the business, what are tasks that you like deeply understand and therefore can do something like create an SOP and then pass off to maybe it's somebody overseas or it's a junior employee. And you make that like first hire to start taking things off of your plate. And what that person is doing is now they're collecting a bunch of these like miscellaneous tasks for you. They're things that you know need to happen and they're things that you've done in the past. You deeply understand them. You know how to monitor them. You know how to tell if they're working or not working. And then you make that like first pass off to somebody else. So for me, that came in the form of e-commerce merchandising. I remember it wasn't really until I think almost 2020. So it was about 2.5 years, or a year and a half in. We had extra production workers that came from our sewing floor. Like they were in the other room helping us make the products.
Love that.
And yeah, it was awesome. One of them is still with me today, which is awesome. She's over 6 years into her adventure with Portland Leather Goods. But I got that first person and they said like, okay, from an investor perspective, invest this person's time to help benefit our company. And that was the first time. I come from a management background, like at a much smaller scale, but that was the first time I had to figure out like, okay, how do I get all my things done? And then what are the things that I can organize in a bucket and pass to this person? That became e-commerce merchandising, building product listings, merchandising the store, making sure sold out products were moved to the back, bestsellers stayed on top, the like. But the simple answer is like, it's not easy. What you're probably not going to find in this conversation or like any of the other material you read is like a hack for it. It's going to take time. And you really have to start to develop this like executive mind state, which is, it's difficult. So I've been doing this thing where I've been trying to post on LinkedIn every day. And I posted something to this effect the other day, which is maybe I'll butcher trying to explain it, right? But just getting good at the skill that you need to own for whatever your position is. So for me, that's marketing. Like to get really good at marketing is already rare enough. Like it's hard. And then every person, if you're in this position who's growing with a company, if you're going to stay on top, if you're going to ride the wave, you have to get good at a second set of skills. And that's like the executive set of skills, like the delegation, the management, all of these things. And that's rare too. So when you take two rare things and they have to both happen, it's not just the rarity of the singular thing. It's the rarity times the rarity. So if you roll a 1 on a dice, your chances are 1 in 6. If you need to roll a 1 on a dice 2 times in a row, you have like a 2 point. I don't remember what
it's
like
1.36 or
yeah,
something.
It's now it's fractional. Like the rarity increases. So if you're trying to go through this journey, like you got to realize like that you're trying to do something that's really, really hard. And it's going to take a lot of hard work. There's no hacks involved. You got to get good at your area of expertise, marketing, ops, whatever it is. And then you have to fight and get really good at management. And that's going to be hard. But I remember back to that first day when I had to like pass over a bucket of activities. It took a lot of work to map those out, to organize them, to train the person, and then to let them go and then kind of watch the work getting done. But I mean, short answer to this whole first segment is like, you got to bust your ass because it's going to take a lot of hard work at the beginning.
IntelliGems is your one-stop shop for profit optimization on your Shopify store. Whether you want to test headlines or copy or images or prices or personalized experience depending on where users came from, IntelliGems is all you need. And because of their help this year, we've been able to increase our conversion rate and our AOV while nearly doubling our site sessions. So go to intelligems.io, tell them I sent you, and you'll start adding dollars to your bottom line today. If you're running an ecom brand, there are 1,000 things to focus on. And your SMS channel is one of those things. But fortunately for you, Postscript is only focused on one thing. They are only focused on being the best, baddest, most reliable SMS platform that ecom has ever seen. So if you're having trouble with your SMS partner, if you are looking for something that's going to be reliable as your business scales and the size of your list doubles and triples and quadruples, then Postscript is the place for you. Go to postscript.io, let them know I sent you, and start making money through SMS. Yeah, I love that you called that out. That's something I'm thinking about lately. Like, we've had, we talked about this on our careers episode, which if you're looking to get ahead in marketing, go listen to that. But like, we've had really good runs at both our companies of like a lot of stuff has gone really, really well for a long time. And like, I've been trying to remind myself how rare that is because this business shit is hard. Like, companies in their default gear are dying. And like, I think you have to do so much work and so much excellent execution to like keep growth headed in the right direction. So I've been trying to remind myself when things aren't going perfectly, when we miss forecast by 8% or whatever, I'm like, all right, the forecast called for 120% growth on the year. So like, that's not bad. Um, so I love that you called that out. The other important thing you mentioned was about surveying your own activities. And the way that I think about it for me is like I should only be doing things that I'm good at, two are important to the business.
Mhm.
Um, because like I think there are some things that I'm good at that don't matter to the business that much, and I don't need to do them. And there are some things that I'm not great at, but are very important to the business. So we have to find a resource who's better at it to do it. I think surveying your own activities is hard enough, but where it gets hard too is like then you have to survey someone else's.
Mhm.
And in the interview and vetting process, you have to kind of take them at their word. And then I've had cases of employees come in who were supposed to do jobs A, B, and C because that's what I needed. That's what they said they were good at. And then we get them in the door and like, oh, you're actually way better at X, Y, and Z. And we got to kind of adjust. And I've been through that at a couple different brands now where like at these fast growing ecom brands, you know, our marketing activities that we're doing today are pretty different than what we were doing a year ago, 18 months ago, 24 months ago. How do you kind of keep up with like the ever evolving needs of like what's really important today might not be the thing that's really important in 6 months, 12 months? But you don't want to fire everyone every 6 months and bring in a whole new batch of team. How do you kind of let people evolve and cater to what's important to the business in the present moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, we're all kind of signed on for that, right? Like we're all expecting our jobs and our roles to look different in a period of time. Like I assume your job doesn't look the same as the first day you walked in. And I
Yep.
assume that like you didn't have to have a hard pep talk with yourself about, your
Right.
flexibility and your ability to change, right? I'm in the same boat. I started as digital media specialist, right? We talked about that in the careers episode. And so, I mean, one, just like you're not going to do anyone a service by pretending their job is never going to change. You're not going to, you're going to end up worse. They're going to end up worse. Everyone's going to have a terrible time if your communication style as a leader is like safety over everything. This is always going to be the same. We're always going to be doing the same jobs and you're permanently safe here to perform exactly as you are now. Like that's not reality. You're not going to do yourself a service. You're going to leave them in a much worse spot. But that's not like necessarily the most comforting message for people who don't like that change. So one, like a big part of our recruiting and screening process is talking to people about change, like talking about how fast we plan to change.
Yeah.
And pre-screening for that is like a characteristic or an attribute of that person is arguably more important than like the ultra specific proficiency they hold today. Like that, just being truthful. But because again, we go through that journey all the time in it. We don't have to have that pep talk. But then
Do
oh, go
you
ahead.
explain that to them as simply as like, hey, this job is going to change and evolve because we're growing really, really fast. And at every new level of growth, we run into new problems that need to be solved and old ones that go away. Like, is it just as simple as like this job will change and evolve in the coming years?
Yeah, I mean, and for me, mostly, I'm having those conversations with a a class of leaders, right? So
Mm,
I'm having that conversation with 7 directors. So they all have their ICs, and then it's their job now to communicate that to their own ICs. But when it was me, yeah, you have to say that up front. They have to know what to expect. Um, I was just a couple hours ago, I was on a meeting with all my directors, and I surveyed them. Like the average um, time that they've been in the company is 4 years. For
that's
like
awesome.
of the 7, it's like 5 of them have been here for 4 years, and everyone else has been here 2 years plus. So I mean, obviously we've done a decent job. Some of those come, like I mentioned, from the production floor. But that was one of Curtis, if you know our founder, like he's very outspoken about like we want to grow, we want to be something bigger than we are, and so that was a part of the screening process, and it's a part of the constant communication. Um, if you're somebody who just wants to, startups may not be for you. If you're the person who wants to like walk
True.
into a job and have it never change, and so like to some extent the burden is on you to make sure you're not putting yourself in a bad situation like that and getting recruited into a company like this. And it's our job to like weed you out of the screening process, or God forbid it comes to it, to like get you out after you've joined the company if you're going to hold us back. But you have to have those conversations as a leader. So I mean, like how you go through that is, one, you have to be open to it to yourself. Like that's a reality. If you want to stay on top of this thing, if you want to get a bigger and bigger title and manage people, you have to expect that that's going to happen. And then number two, you have to have the conversations and prep the people you're with. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to make them feel, safe every day, knowing that their job description could change, but it is the truth. So that's a big part of it. Don't fight it, embrace it, have those hard conversations early, early, early.
That's awesome. Let's talk about kind of the last stage of this fully evolving into manager only, executive only. Um, is that weird for you? Is that hard for you? Because I
Oh
think
yeah.
like we both got into this game because like we're passionate about the work. Like I can't tell you how exciting it is for me, like to write a new headline and test it and watch it outperform the last one. Um, but that's not what the company needs you doing right now. Talk to me a little bit about like what I should expect when I get there, and kind of some key takeaways of that chapter
Yeah.
in your life.
Well, I mean, so like for me, like just kind of describing what my current day to day, and I don't think it's anywhere close to being done. I think that it's always going to change and evolve. Obviously, like we just talked about that. Um, like for me, the word that I tend to use more than anyone describing like the executive mind state or how you're managing a big group of people is like alignment. And I heard this analogy, or this just line that says precision minimizes effort. The difference between a laser that can cut through material and a street light is often not the output. It's
Mm,
the amount of surface area that light is concentrated on. That's what takes it from a street light. You can light up a whole parking lot to an actual laser that's cutting through, wood or steel or whatever it is. It's not the output. It's just the alignment. And so for now, I spend most of my days working with those 6 people because they're all fantastic. They all have a team underneath them, and I mean we're fast forwarding 5+ years of growing them and growing myself and learning how to organize and how to align people, and making world class hires like Matt. If you don't know Matt, he deserves a shout out on here because
yep.
I'm only able to step away from being directly behind the steering wheel when it comes to running our advertising budget because I have somebody awesome like Matt. So shout out Matt Fay. But in any case, the alignment is so important. That's how I look at it. Is I don't. I've got those directors. They're competent. They're capable. They're motivated. I don't have to worry about whether or not they're actually working on any given day.
Yeah.
I know they're working. I know they're motivated. What I need to focus on is making sure they know what we're working on. So we went through a kind of an exercise, and this is probably a good idea for anyone to do, with each of those directors. And we talked to them. We said, "You're on a marketing team. You're not on an ops team. You're here because of your proximity to the marketing functions of the business." And we kind of define that as the ability to generate more revenue or generate revenue more efficiently. That's kind of what my team does. I don't make product. I don't make cash flow forecasts and go out and find, whatever it is, investment. I deal with marketing. And we went through each director's department and said, like, we need to be able to articulate. You, as the director, need to be able to articulate for the benefit of your ICs what the hell you're doing here and how that relates to our core function, which is to generate more revenue or generate it more efficiently. And everyone kind of intuitively gets it. But if you kind of demand that you can articulate that down to like a 2-word sentence, you can find there's a lot of mush in there. So for
Yeah,
instance,
definitely.
social media, right? We're trying to say like social media, exactly how, for the benefit of your team, exactly how do you explain how you help the core marketing functions of the business. And I won't, I'll spare you the weeks and weeks and weeks and months it took us to come up with, how to explain that. But we basically came down to the idea that social media has earned or owns a great tool to distribute earned impressions. We can distribute a message free of charge via our social media. We can use that distribution power to generate revenue or to generate it more efficiently, to promote certain things or to promote promotions, whatever it is. And that connects to the marketing functions of the business. But that's not necessarily intuitively what the social media manager thinks about when they sit down to work all that day. And so you need, as the executive or as the leader of this team, you need to make sure everyone is crystal clear about what it is they're doing and how that serves the business. And then make sure that they're all firing at the same target. We all go through a transition where if you're an IC, and especially if you're a good one, right? I know you're great at it. It's weird because you have to go through a transition where you're going to get more done by aligning and making sure everyone's shooting at the same target than you could ever possibly get done by yourself, because you just can't be in all the places crushing all the things. You can't be in graphic design. You can't be in social media. And so what the business needs from you, which is another great frame, what does the business need from me as a leader, is to make sure that everyone's like absolutely crystal clear and aligned, shooting at the same target. So I could go on and on, but maybe I'll just pause it there.
One question on that. Do you think that alignment comes from the years you have spent with your directors, or does it come from an ongoing sharpening and correcting on a weekly basis and kind of keeping them on task? Is it more about the history that like you and Matt have of like Matt's been doing this with you guys? I know for sure for at least 3 years now, because I think that's when we met. Are you at a point where you're like, he's good, and I don't need to call him out on this pod, but like, are your directors, good and aligned and focused on what you need them to be because they've spent years with you, or because you're in very close communication today, kind of on an ongoing basis?
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely a benefit to work with the same team for a long period of time. Like you get a chemistry, you kind of know, you know a lot about them, you know about what they're focused on and what their priorities are, like, I mean, down to like where they're going to spend their time this weekend. That's can also come with drawbacks. Like I mentioned in the beginning, like you don't know what you don't know. And so sometimes it's hard to conceptualize new opportunities because we all know each other and we're highly gelled. And so we kind of get in our ruts. And sometimes we fail to think about things in a new way. But in any case, I think that the success of that, yes, time in and longevity is a massive benefit. It's awesome. You should try to keep people as long as possible and get good with that team. It's awesome. But two, I think it just comes from like whoever is in that leadership position, whether it's a director, whether it's me, whether it's whoever it is, it comes from this just generalized approach to how we attack problems. Like I'm much less concerned about the specific solution to any specific problem than I am concerned about the general framework of how we attack problems, because I don't have time to learn all of the specific details about every specific problem. When we encounter a problem, we encounter a challenge, I just want to know, how do we get to the other side? And that's really the fundamental question, as opposed to this, how do we do blah, 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 this ultra specific version of the problem. Like, I just prefer the framework. Like, how do we get to the other side? And somebody knows, or maybe somebody doesn't know, and we need to go find somebody. But you attack the problem through that lens. And I believe that's what makes that transferable. That's what, for instance, I have on my team, software developers. I can't read or write a damn line of code. I don't know anything about it, but I know how to work together with our director. He's fantastic to tackle problems, to work together, to find out what we know, what we don't know, how to get to the other side. And that's what qualifies me to work with him and to align his work to our broader mission. It's not because I have a core proficiency in development at all. And so that you eventually go from I'm a talented X marketer, whatever it is, to I'm becoming a better leader. And my core proficiency is marketing. Therefore, I sit in the marketing department, not the ops or the finance, things like that.
Awesome. Dude, that might be like a quick 20-minute masterclass in management, dude. That was great.
I hope so. I hope it helps at least one person. I mean, I remember what it was like.
Well, it helped me. So check.
Good.
I don't even have to post it for anyone else to get helps.
I love it. Yeah, no, it's a lonely road because, and one more thing I'll just drop on that is there's a big mistake I see people make when when they go to take the next step. And that's trying to take too many people with you. Eventually,
Mm,
you need to leave people in place fulfilling their role, which is sort of kind of the opposite of the beginning stages where everything and everyone is flexible. At
yeah.
some point, like you clearly identify a section of the business that just needs to be executed on every single day. And leaders sometimes get really familiar with that group of people. And so when they go to conquer the next thing, they have this tendency to like round up the troops and take them with them. And that can be a mistake. Not always, but it can be a mistake. And so you go through this very like lonely jumping off point over and over and over again, where it's sort of time to leave the familiar faces in place, like dutifully performing their role, and you go challenge the next thing by
Yeah.
yourself. And that's scary to go find the next new opportunity and the next new set of faces that you have to bring in and execute on it who haven't been here for 6 years. Like that's scary.
Yeah.
But it's the right move. You can't take everyone everywhere. Sometimes at certain opportunities, the right move is to leave people in place, which doesn't mean leave them behind, and then go tackle the new thing for the benefit of the company.
Yeah. Love that. Love that. Awesome.